Hello, everyone. My name is Atkins Zanko, and I'm here to talk to you today about the music of Boygenius and how that relates to what social psychologists call the paradox of pleasurable sadness. Now, the paradox of pleasurable sadness have been researched before by several researchers, and I'll be including their thoughts in this essay and analysis. So we're going to start with the basis of social comparison theory, which is what researchers have previously found to be the basis of the reason that we like to listen to sad music. So the paradox of pleasurable sadness is the idea that we enjoy listening to sad music, even though it might make us sad. Um, Researchers have theorized that this is due to social comparison, or that we are engaging in downward social comparisons with individuals who are in worse situations than us. Researchers have also theorized that it might have something to do with self-regulation and something to do with what is called the parallel processing hypothesis. And we're going to get into each of these things in detail. But to start off, I wanted to talk about the specific subject I chose for this sad music analysis, and that is the band Boygenius. Boygenius actually consists of three individual artists, Phoebe Bridgers, Lucy Dacus, and Julian Baker, all of whom sort of made this pop rock melancholic sound prior to joining up and creating a band under a record label. They focus on themes of self-love, recovery from abuse or recovery from trauma, experiences with unhealthy relationships, and sort of existential dread of the 20th century. The two albums that these songs we are talking about today are from are Boygenius, their self-titled album, and The Album, their most recent album that was released this year in 2024. The first song is called Me and My Dog, and the second song is called Letter from a Poet. Now, these songs were actually sort of created in step with one another. One of the songs was originally written and created sort of when Phoebe was still in a relationship with her ex-boyfriend, and Letter from an Old Poet. Letter from an Old Poet was written and performed after the end of her sort of self-identified recovery from that breakup. So they came together to form this band because they all had very similar music and they believed in similar things and they collaborated really well. So these two songs, and if you'd like, you can pause the presentation to look at the lyrics as I will present them, are actually quite short. Neither of them are very long. They're both written in the sort of a free form poem form. They don't necessarily rhyme. They're both in very, melancholic, sad sort of chords, and they address the listener as if the listener is the person that they were in the relationship with. So it's a very personal feeling to the songs. Specific lyrics actually bring to mind some of these social theories we've been talking about, and we'll go into that in detail as we move along. Again, if you'd like to read these in full, just go ahead and pause the video. So the first thing that scientists or researchers thought when they were like, okay, why do people like to listen to sad music, is social comparison theory. It makes us feel better when we engage in downward comparison, i.e., we are comparing ourselves to people who are doing worse than us, and it makes us feel better. The inverse is also true, where if we compare ourselves to people who are doing better than us, we might feel worse. So they use that as the basis of, oh, they're listening to sad things. Maybe they feel better because they're not doing as bad as the singer, right? And also that would apply especially in situations where people identify with the experiences of any of those individuals, right? So also because this relationship is so one-on-one, these songs are so personal, right? We talked about that being sort of a one-on-one conversation with the listener. Self-evaluation maintenance theory also applies. It is that this downward social comparison made between the listener and the singer, since it's a one-on-one conversation, there's another theory that applies. So the basic idea is that when uncertainty is high, the likelihood of engaging in social comparisons goes up. And we're thinking, well, people who are listening to sad music are probably in uncertain circumstances or would identify with uncertain circumstances, right? This might be socioeconomic circumstances, social circumstances, individual circumstances, what have you. So with self-evaluation maintenance theory, this thing that Tesser came up with, right? When close others do well, like our family members or our friends, we might actually feel less by comparison, right? And listening to sad music then would be the inverse relationship of that, where there's a sort of parasocial relationship between the singer and the listener, right? And the listener might feel connected to that individual in that moment. So if they're doing worse, they might actually feel better by comparison. Okay. And, you know, all that being said, this theory is pretty easy to disprove as the sole basis. Simply, all you have to do is look at the comment section of any of these songs on YouTube. They're filled with offers of hope, stories of the darkest parts of individuals' lives, many attempting to give hope to others in the sense that they're not alone in their experiences, right? You can see this sort of social comparison illustrated in multiple of these lyrics. I said that I think you're special. You told me once that I'm selfish, sort of comparing each other against each other. Or you make me feel like an equal, but I'm better than you. And you should know that by now. That would be a downward social comparison, right? Where the speaker is saying they're better. You make me so cool. Sometimes I still do something embarrassing, where they are comparing themselves to someone they believe to comparing themselves to someone that they believe to be better than them, right? All right. So the next theory we're going to talk about is that it might be a method to self-regulate to listen to sad music, right? Self-esteem can be maintained through positive self-talk for most people. But for individuals who already have low self-esteem, it's been found to kind of have the opposite effect, and it might actually serve as a reminder that the individual is not meeting their goals. So that might make it harder for positive self-talk to be a self-maintenance strategy. So it has to happen another way. Another thing about self-regulation is that ego depletion is a big thing, right? When we've exerted a bunch of self-control recently, then we have to, really work extra hard to continue to exert that level of control. And sometimes we can deplete that level of control. We read about that this quarter in the experiment with the donuts, where when individuals had to resist a donut, then they had found it harder to resist subsequent negative behaviors, right? Okay. So we regulate ourselves better when we feel less taxed with managing our emotions. And when individuals have training in self-regulation, ego depletion is less likely to impair your self-control. If you have tolerance training, right, with these sorts of experiences, that might deplete your regulatory states. So listening to sad music, you might find it easier to self-regulate since it's not your personal experience, even though you're feeling those emotions. And that experience of going through those emotions and not having it be a negative thing and being able to self-regulate in sort of a play pretend circumstance or a practice circumstance might make it easier for individuals to self-regulate in their real life circumstances. We've also found, Juslin et al. Found in 2015 that when individuals feel sad, their self-regulation actually increases when they listen to sad music. We believe that that has something to do with the emotional congruence of the music with their current state, right? Their identification with the singer. Okay. So individuals can increase their self-control also by abstractly thinking about their goals. This was found by Fujita and Han in 2009. So by kind of listening to songwriters' stories of their own lives or their stories about the lives of others, we might be encouraged to explore possible selves, other possible versions of us. And that might be a version of thinking abstractly about our goals. Role models also represent the possibility to explore alternative selves and possible goals, right? Which might also help us increase our self-control. In one study, it was found that individuals preferred music that was, remember, congruent with their current mood. That was Hauk et al. In 2023, right? And mood and cognition have been shown to have those strong bi-directional effects on each other. That means cognition affects mood, mood affects cognition, right? That was Barron in 2008 and McDonald-Pert in 1997. So that's something we've known for a really long time, right? So other research shows that when we think abstractly about our goals, we can increase our self-regulation. So sad music might serve as that sort of gateway into imagining possible selves or exploring fantasies of ourselves as those individuals we put ourselves in the roles of, right, through listening to music. All right. So the last bit is actually neuroscience, right? So the parallel processing hypothesis is something that we have researched where we believe that the reason individuals can perform more than one mental or physical task at a time is because these processes run parallel to one another. They run simultaneously, but they don't crisscross over one another or use the same resources, right? The paradox of pleasurable sadness is a really good example of this parallel processing hypothesis, okay? Uh, the motivational action tendency, subjective feeling, and appraisal are all elements of this paradox. The appraisal, how we appraise the situation in front of us, decouples subjective feelings, right? The physical, emotional response from the motivational action tendency, or what our normal response to that stimuli, that feeling is, right? The subjective feeling is the same. We still feel sad when we listen to that music. But the process that controls that negative response, that appraisal of that situation as a negative situation, isn't the same. So the feelings don't occur. Schubert found that in 2016. This theory was founded on the two-factor theory of emotion, right? That there are two factors to any emotion, right? Physiological arousal and our cognitive assessment of that physiological arousal. So the feelings in our bodies, and then what we think and feel about the feelings in our bodies. And that has a lot to do with our culture, our personality, and our individual circumstances, right? So that is based on internal emotional cues and external emotional cues, those internal beliefs we have and those external responses that we might get from other people. Prolactin and oxytocin levels were found in high empathy individuals were significantly lower after they listened to sad music, which suggested that they actually released prolactin and oxytocin in response to listening to it. And prolactin and oxytocin are associated with coping with grief, which is a really interesting finding. Right. So the big overall takeaway is that sad music kind of induces what we call aesthetic emotions, right? It's a two-factor theory of musical emotion, so originally suggested by Kawakami. So there are two axes upon which these emotions are assessed, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, and whether it's direct, as in we're experiencing ourselves, or it's an experience we had, or it's vicarious, as in we're experiencing it through another individual. The model allows for the inclusion of what's referred to as aesthetic emotions. Aesthetic emotions are related to internal approach avoid tendencies, those evolutionary, yes, go toward that, or no, stay away from that tendencies. And especially around those things that are intermittently around that we desire, things that are pretty, things that are beautiful, things that catch our eye and give us awe, like music, art, etc. There are more commonplace aesthetic emotions like amazement and becoming flabbergasted and all that kind of stuff. Research shows that negative valence music can be used as a really good coping tool and self-regulatory strategy through these vicarious aesthetic emotion, such as hope. These can be illustrated in the lyrics that we saw earlier, like, I can't feel it yet, but I'm waiting all morning. We can kind of feel that experience through the singer. Or, I want to be happy. I'm ready to walk into my room without looking for you. We've all had that experience of expecting someone to be there and then they're not. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this presentation. I've already gone a little bit over time. Thank you so much for listening, and you have a lovely night.